Return what isn't yours. Venus, Judith's voice cracked through the grand ballroom like a whip. You stole my daughter's birthright. The chandelier's light seemed to dim as every head turned toward me. My pulse thundered in my ears, the champagne glass slick in my trembling hand. My name is Venus Carter. I'm 31. A pianist who never expected to inherit a manufacturing empire. Just an hour earlier, I'd walked into the Westbrook Hotel ballroom for Judith's 55th birthday, foolishly hopeful. A year had passed since my father died, and I'd convinced myself this invitation was a peace offering. It wasn't. It was a trap. That company was meant for Pamela, Judith spat, advancing as whispers rippled through Houston's elite. Your father built it for his children. You manipulated him when he was sick. Faces I'd worked with for months, clients, suppliers, community leaders, now looked at me with suspicion. I tried to speak, but my voice faltered. That's not true. Dad's will was clear. He wanted his real daughter to have the company, Judith snapped, not some piano-playing charity case who barely visited him. Her words hit their mark. Guilt already lived in me, years spent touring had kept me away. Hearing it flung at me in public was brutal. Behind her, Pamela smirked, nodding along like she'd been waiting for this moment. She'd never cared about the business before, now she wanted it handed to her. Murmurs spread through the crowd. I always thought it was strange how she showed up when Thomas got sick, someone whispered. Another voice joined in, then another. Within minutes, whispers became a wave of hostility. I think you should leave, Judith said coolly, as though the outcome had been decided long before I arrived. Nobody wants a thief at this celebration. I walked out on shaking legs, shame burning through me. In the darkness of the parking lot, I finally let the tears come. These weren't strangers, they were people whose respect I'd worked a year to earn, and in one calculated scene, Judith had poisoned it all. Thomas Carter had built Carter Manufacturing from nothing. He'd married Judith when I was 15, blending our families after my mother's death. She'd played the doting wife, until his cancer diagnosis. I could still hear his frail but determined voice in that hospital room. Venus, you understand this company. Pamela doesn't. I'm leaving it to you. Promise me you'll protect it. I had promised. I'd walked away from music to keep that promise. Judith and Pamela had seemed to accept his will at first, but over the past year, their quiet sabotage had grown relentless. Tonight was their final strike. My phone buzzed. Bernard Wesley, just heard what happened. Are you okay? Call me. Bernard had been Dad's attorney and friend for decades. His steady voice on the line was a lifeline. She's lying, Bernard. Everyone in that room believes her. She's lost every appeal. He reminded me sharply. We have video proof of Thomas's intent. Do you have your laptop? In my trunk. Meet me at my office in 30 minutes. If Judith wants a public war, we'll fight back with the truth, every document, every recording, every piece of evidence your father left. The humiliation in my chest began to shift into something fiercer, resolve. Bernard's downtown office was still lit when I arrived. Inside, stacks of binders filled the conference table. Thomas prepared for this, Bernard said, flipping open files. He knew Judith. She doesn't need the company, she needs control. If she can't get it legally, she'll try to destroy your credibility. I clenched my fists, remembering the jeers in that ballroom. She's already succeeding. Not for long, Bernard replied. We have everything, financials showing your 22% growth, records of Pamela's disinterest, your strategic plans, and this. He held up a USB drive. Thomas recorded a statement. 3 months before he died, he made sure no one could question his decision. I stared at the small silver drive in my hand. I hadn't watched that video since the day we recorded it, but now, it wasn't just evidence, it was a promise. I took a deep breath. Let's fight. Which she declined because it involved too much boring paperwork. A plan clicked into place. Bernard, I said, a spark lighting in my chest, that printer of yours still as fast as I remember. He smiled, catching on immediately, lightning fast, and I've got enough binders to supply a law school. For the next hour, we worked with quiet precision. Bernard printed everything, court rulings, financial records, employee letters. I assembled the evidence into crisp presentation binders, one for every table at the gala. Between printer hums, Bernard made calls to 3 trusted colleagues, respected attorneys who agreed to meet us at the hotel. Their presence would add weight to every word we spoke. This isn't just about clearing your name, Bernard said as we loaded the last binder. This is about securing your position permanently. After tonight, Judith won't be able to touch you. I glanced at my watch. Just after 10, the gala would still be in full swing. My father used to say, I murmured, sliding the binders into Bernard's SUV, don't just defend yourself when attacked, crush the lie so hard they regret ever telling it. Bernard's smile was steady, proud, he'd be proud of you tonight. I inhaled deeply, let's finish this. The drive through downtown Houston was quiet, my nerves buzzing like static. In the back seat, the binders felt heavier than paper, they were my father's voice, my work, my right to stand where I stood. Remember, Bernard said as the valet came into view, you're not just Thomas Carter's daughter tonight, you're the CEO of Carter Manufacturing. We stepped out of the SUV as his 3 colleagues arrived, their tailored suits and sharp eyes forming a wall of calm authority. The doorman who'd watched me flee in tears earlier now stepped aside, eyes widening at the legal phalanx beside me. The ballroom doors loomed ahead, my pulse thundered. Inside, the celebration carried on as if nothing had happened, glasses clinked, perfume drifted through the air, the string quartet played its gentle waltz, but the moment I crossed the threshold, a hush rolled through the room like a tide, conversations died, heads turned. Judith stood near the cake display, champagne in hand, radiating triumph, but when she saw me, saw us, her smile faltered. Pamela grabbed her arm, whispering frantically. Ladies and gentlemen, Bernard's voice boomed, steady and commanding, my name is Bernard Wesley, counsel to Thomas Carter and executor of his estate. I believe there's been a serious misunderstanding regarding Carter Manufacturing. The music stopped, all eyes fixed on us. Earlier this evening, damaging accusations were made against Venus Carter, the rightful CEO of Carter Manufacturing. He continued, my colleagues and I are here to present the legal and factual record. The attorneys fanned out, delivering binders to each table. I walked toward the small stage, took the microphone from a violinist, and faced the crowd that had booed me hours earlier. 2 hours ago, I began, voice clear, I was called a thief, I was humiliated in front of people I respect. My stepmother orchestrated that spectacle. What she didn't tell you is that she's contested my father's will 3 times. Bernard projected the court documents onto the massive screen behind me. She lost every single time. Judith started to move, but Bernard's colleagues stepped in front of her, a silent barricade. Before you hear from me, I said, you should hear from my father. The lights dimmed slightly as Bernard plugged in the USB, the screen flickered, and there he was, my father, frail but unyielding, sitting in his study, his voice filled the room, raspy, firm, unshakable. My name is Thomas Carter, he said. I'm recording this on March 15th in the presence of my attorney, Bernard Wesley, and Dr. Catherine Wilson, who has certified my mental competence. The camera briefly showed Bernard and Dr. Wilson before returning to him. I founded Carter Manufacturing. After careful consideration, I'm leaving controlling interest in my company to my daughter, Venus Carter. A murmur rippled through the crowd. He continued, eyes sharp despite the illness hollowing his cheeks. Venus has demonstrated the skill and dedication required to lead. She studied this business for years, taken courses, joined strategy sessions, even while touring as a pianist. Pamela has been offered opportunities and declined them. She once told me, and I quote, I have no interest in spending my life making boring industrial parts. The footage cut to a family dinner, Pamela, rolling her eyes, saying those exact words, then a clip of her refusing a training position in Dad's office, her face now flushed crimson under the ballroom lights. I love both my daughters, my father said, but a business must be led by someone who loves it. Venus does. I am of sound mind in making this decision. Dr. Wilson's confirmation followed, her credentials appearing beneath her name. Then, finally, Dad's gaze locked on the camera. I trust Venus to protect my legacy. When the screen went dark, the silence was absolute. Guests flipped through their binders, brows furrowed, some visibly ashamed. Since taking over, I said steadily, Carter Manufacturing has grown revenue by 22%. We've expanded into 2 new markets, created 17 jobs, and avoided layoffs. Page 12 outlines the numbers. Page 15 contains the job offer Pamela declined. Her words are there in black and white. I let the facts sink in, then added, and at the back, you'll find the court rulings, 3 judges, 3 decisions, no manipulation, no fraud, just my father's will, upheld again and again. Pamela stared at the floor. Judith's knuckles whitened around her champagne glass, and around the room, heads began to nod, not in judgment this time, but in recognition of the truth.
I stepped forward, placing the microphone gently on the stage. For a heartbeat, the ballroom was silent. I met Judith's eyes where she stood near the cake display, frozen like a queen whose crown had just been knocked askew. "You asked me to return what isn't mine," I said, my voice steady and carrying through the room. "But as everyone here has just seen, Carter Manufacturing is exactly where my father wanted it to be, in my hands." I lifted the microphone again and turned to the audience. "I understand many of you were misled tonight. You heard one side of a complicated story and reacted based on incomplete information." I let my gaze sweep slowly across the room. "I don't blame you for that. What I do ask is that you review the evidence before passing judgment." The tension that had once hung over the room like smoke was thinning, replaced by a restless, awkward silence. Gregory Thompson, the CEO of our largest client, rose from his table. "Venus," he said, his voice clear and direct, "I owe you an apology. I should have known better than to take such accusations at face value." His public acknowledgement cracked something open. Guests flipped through binders with renewed urgency, exchanging low murmurs. A single person at the back began to clap, then another joined, and another. Soon, polite applause rippled through the ballroom. Judith broke through the attorney's blockade like a storm front, Pamela trailing behind her. "How dare you?" she hissed, venom coating each word. "This is my birthday celebration, and you've turned it into a boardroom presentation. This is exactly why Thomas should never have left you the company. You have no class." I smiled, calm, composed, deliberate. "That's rich, Judith. You used your own birthday to publicly accuse me of theft and have me humiliated. I'm simply returning the favor, with facts." "You manipulated him when he was dying," Pamela burst out, her voice cracking. "You were barely around." Bernard stepped forward, tablet in hand. "Actually," he said, his tone precise, "hospital visitor logs show Venus visited Thomas 83 times in his final 6 months. Pamela, you visited 12. Mrs. Carter, 37. Pamela's mouth opened, then closed again. No rebuttal came. Judith's mask slipped, her anger raw now. "The company was supposed to secure our future," she said. "Thomas promised me we'd always be taken care of." "And you are," I replied, my voice low but firm. "Dad's will provides for both of you. The trusts he set up ensure you'll never have financial worries, but he didn't give you control of his life's work because he knew exactly what would happen if he did." Judith's face twisted with rage. For a moment, I thought she might strike me. Instead, she grabbed Pamela's arm and stalked toward the exit. "This isn't over," she spat. "Actually, it is," Bernard called after her coolly. "Any further legal challenges will be considered vexatious litigation. We'll seek sanctions." The ballroom exhaled as they disappeared through the doors. The hostility that had greeted me earlier was gone, replaced by apologies, handshakes, and offers of support. One by one, people approached me, some sheepish, some contrite, many sincere. Edward Winters, my father's former CFO and oldest friend, made his way to me, his eyes soft with pride. "Thomas was right about you," he said, squeezing my hand. "He always said you had your mother's talent and his head for business." Tears stung my eyes, but they weren't from humiliation anymore, they were from vindication. "Thank you, Edward," I said softly. "That means everything." The night that had begun with disgrace ended in quiet triumph. Bernard and the other attorneys collected the binders, mission accomplished. Around me, the hum of conversation had shifted. This was no longer Judith's party, it was my stage. Bernard turned to me. "What now?" I glanced around the ballroom, at the faces of Houston's business elite allies now, not enemies. I straightened my shoulders. "Now," I said, "I network. I'm not just Thomas Carter's daughter anymore. I'm the CEO of Carter Manufacturing." 6 months later, that night is still spoken of in boardrooms and business columns. The evening Judith tried to ruin me became the night I claimed my place. Carter Manufacturing has exceeded even my most optimistic projections. Gregory Thompson doubled his company's orders. 3 former clients returned with long-term contracts. We've added 32 new employees and opened a second facility in Austin. The same community that once questioned my right to lead now hails us as a model of innovation and integrity. Pamela's trajectory surprised everyone, especially me. 2 weeks after the gala, she appeared at my office unannounced, twisting her hands like a child about to confess. "I need a job," she said bluntly. "Mom burned through her savings on the lawsuits. My trust doesn't mature for another 3 years." I searched her face, expecting manipulation. Instead, I found something else: honesty and desperation. "Why come to me?" I asked. "Because," she admitted, "you're the only one who's actually succeeding." Against Bernard's cautious advice, I hired her entry-level marketing department. To my surprise, she's good, maybe even great. We're not friends, not yet, but the tension between us has evolved into something pragmatic: respect, the beginning of trust. Judith, on the other hand, fled Houston weeks after the gala. Word is, she's in Phoenix now, circling another wealthy widower. Our paths haven't crossed since. My personal life has changed just as dramatically. For years, music was my refuge, the piano my constant companion through loss, through the awkward blending of families, through the relentless grind of touring. When Dad got sick, I thought stepping away from music was temporary. I was wrong. Leading Carter Manufacturing has awakened something different in me, a sense of purpose that runs deeper than applause. I still play, but now it's for me. Quiet nights, empty rooms, just the keys and my thoughts. Last month, I launched the Thomas Carter Foundation, merging the two halves of my life, music and business. We fund music education in underserved schools and mentor young entrepreneurs across Texas. At the foundation's launch, I performed Dad's favorite Chopin nocturne on a grand piano set up inside the factory. The hum of machines mingled with the melody, art and industry, side by side, exactly as he would have wanted. In that moment, surrounded by the people he built this company for, I understood something vital. Inheritance isn't just about assets or power, it's about carrying forward someone's legacy and adding your own verse to it. The same people who once turned on me now champion me. Pamela is finding her footing, the company thrives, and I've found balance between the artist I was and the leader I'd become. Dad was right. Some legacies aren't stolen, they're earned.